All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, recording on a Thursday afternoon. We're going to close out the week talking about Championship Sunday in the NFL, and then our favorite bets on Sunday, and a little breakdown of the Australian Open Women's Final between Aryna Sabalenka and, surprisingly, American Madison Keys. But let's start off with the games. Commanders are 6-point dogs at the Eagles after it opened more like 4.5. The total is 47.5. The Chiefs 2-point favorites over Buffalo. It's identical total. Let's start off in Philadelphia. Drew, have you changed your mind about anything throughout the week?
I haven't, but I guess for those who weren't listening earlier, I'm locked in at 5.5, and then now at 6 minus 115. I think that a lot of the edge is pretty much gone here. For me, the interesting part watching this market, we kind of expected it was going to firm for the Eagles as the Hurts news got better and better throughout the week, and that happened earlier than I thought it was. But regardless, it happened. This more surprising thing is the total came down from 48 to 47, which I thought was directionally correct. But then there was a pretty significant push back up yesterday. So somebody's playing defense here, trying to wait for limits up to get a bigger position on the under, or there is some sincere resistance that 47.5 is right. I kind of lean the former. I think the under is the right side here, and this probably closes 46.5, 47. And for me, the whole handicap still comes down to Eagles defense against the Commanders offense. Commanders offense has scored 20 points in every game this season, except for two exceptions. One was the game that Jaden Daniels was injured against the Bears, and the other was the game at the Eagles where they scored 18, and there were some favorable things to get them to that 18. I think the Eagles defense matches up extremely well against this Commanders team, particularly with the absence of Cosme in the interior of that offensive line and up against a peaking Jalen Carter. So I love the Commanders. Have really enjoyed watching their football throughout this season. Excited to see them in the playoffs for years to come. But in this spot, fourth game in a row on the road, hostile environment, best defense in the NFL. I think it would be a pretty healthy ask for them to compete here. So I added a little Commanders team total under yesterday. And I think that ultimately this game breaks in this, high 20s for the Eagles, low teens for the Commanders.
Okay. Saquon Barkley set 128.5 rushing yards in this game, which is the highest that I can remember for any running back in a playoff game. You'd probably have to go back to like Adrian Peterson in his MVP year, maybe, or LaDainian Tomlinson before that. Nothing else really jumps to mind. Bills Chiefs, Chiefs -2. This market, if ever there was going to be a liquid market that is tough to beat in the NFL, it's probably this one, given how just the wealth of data points about both of these teams in this specific matchup, which we see annually at this point. What do you think, Drew? Do you think there is any meat on the bone with the Bills as an underdog?
I do. And some of it is just flat out price. I would make the Bills a small favorite here, not a small dog. And so getting them at plus money is intriguing to me. And kind of the aspect of the game that I'm the most excited to see is how aggressively they deploy Josh Allen in the rushing attack. It is pretty clear trend when they've gone up against the elite teams and the big moments throughout the season. They've given Josh Allen a healthier load in terms of rushing, just designed runs and maybe even more freedom, or maybe he's just making the decision that, hey, I'm going to go get these hard yards. But I'm expecting him to have somewhere in the ballpark of double-digit rushing attempts and 50 to 60 yards rushing and a touchdown. And I think ultimately that aspect of being able to play a little bit of ball control and keep Mahomes on ice is kind of where I would have any kind of confidence that the Bills are able to get this thing across the finish line. And it's never comfortable or fun going up against Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. I've lost plenty of money doing that, but I do think that this Chiefs team is probably among the least scary, and their record doesn't really kind of completely explain where there are some clear and obvious weaknesses to attack, and the Bills at least have had enough reps and enough opportunity, and like the long arc of history between these two teams and this rivalry and this battle has like consistently trended towards the Bills, and I think they finally get it done on Sunday. But this is, as you mentioned, this is probably the toughest market to beat all year to this point, and it's far from the bet of the weekend, but we'll come back to that in a bit.
Okay. I would expect that Josh Allen is going to empty the clip in this one in a way that is departed from the statistical profiles of recent games where they've leaned on James Cook to a much greater extent. Allen's completions prop is set at 20.5 with the under backed. He completed 26, 27 passes each of the past 2 games against the Chiefs. I suspect that it's going to be closer to that range than 20.5. One of the weird things about last year's playoff matchup was the Chiefs just never had the ball because they just scored immediately, it felt like, and they only had the ball for 22 minutes. And that's why Mahomes only needed to complete 17 passes, because they were so efficient on offense. I think this Bills defense is in a bit better place health-wise, so it's not going to look as comical. But are there any specific matchup elements or anything else that you're looking for in this game?
Yeah, I think the two kind of the two live betting angles that stick out to me for both of these games are just what happens with a 2-score lead. And with the Eagles with the 2-score lead, I think that leans pretty heavily to an under. If the Bills can generate a 2-score lead, I think that leans pretty heavily to an under. I think the pass rush for the Bills is being a little bit underrated against a weak offensive line for the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs are in must pass mode and the threat of the run is just taken out of the playbook because of the game state, then I'm not seeing the Chiefs finding success in that world. Chiefs with the lead plays to an over. I think Bills in comeback mode are, capable of putting some serious scoreboard pressure. And, there's a world where this game goes over the total and it's a shootout, but I think that world kind of requires the Bills to be at a deficit. And so most of my kind of second half betting and live looks are going to be either the Bills at a dog price as a comeback candidate, or a live over if the Bills have a little bit of offensive, just futility in the first quarter, first half, then live over Bills is kind of the look for me. But there's a pretty different kind of tone than I would treat basically any other Chiefs game, where I think the Chiefs are not going to be able to run away and hide against this team.
Indeed. Okay, Manchester City tries to climb back up the Premier League table this Saturday when they face Chelsea. City beat the Blues at the beginning of the season. Can they do it again this weekend? To find out at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. Our favorite bets for Championship Sunday. I will start us off. Sacrilegious to take this bet during the playoffs, but I'll do it anyway. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes under 25.5 rushing yards. I think that this prop is seeing a premium because of how much more Mahomes scrambles in the playoffs and isn't baking in enough the specific matchup or defensive scheme where Sean McDermott likes to play a spy. And we saw that against Lamar Jackson, who only carried the ball 6 times. Patrick Mahomes has one game all season without a rushing yard or rushing attempt. That was against Buffalo when they played. His 2 previous matchups against Buffalo, he went for 19 rushing yards and 8 rushing yards. I think particularly with Matt Milano back and the ability to use a spy, I think that they will go out of their way to make sure that Patrick Mahomes does not beat them with his legs, as he is so often prone to do against other teams. So I'll take Mahomes under 25.5 rushing yards. But what do you like, Drew?
Dude, I love it. I'll just do yours. No, I'm just kidding. If you're listening to this on Friday, the best bet of the weekend is probably the Hornets covering against the Trailblazers on Friday night. But in the world of football, Jay, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills money line. You're getting a plus money price on the better team in this matchup, in my opinion. And I think the time has come for the Bills to really correct the ledger in the arc of this rivalry. In particular, Josh Allen's ability to get the hard yards on the ground be successful in the red zone, I think are going to be the real differentiating factors. And the Bills with the lead, I think, are going to be able to do a little bit of pin their ears back with the pass rush against the weak tackles for the Chiefs, and contain Mahomes on the ground and sack him to the degree that we saw during the regular season. So Bills, I think, are going to finally punch their ticket. And while this may sound super confident, it's not until the final whistle blows. I will be sweating this one, and hopefully it is good news for us in the Bills camp.
Yeah, I will need Buffalo. I have a ticket on them from preseason to win the Super Bowl at 20-1. Don't feel great about this matchup. Don't feel badly about it either. It just feels like a coin flip to me. Yeah. I'm with you. If independent of my existing position, if I had to take a side, it would be Buffalo, but it's more for kind of ethereal vibe type of reasons where it feels like this is finally the time that Josh Allen gets over the hump. I do think it is material that the Bills defense is in a much better spot health-wise than it was in last year's playoff matchup where they had no chance whatsoever. Also, I think, and maybe unpopular, maybe popular, I don't know, I think Allen is materially better than he was last year.
I agree.
And I don't think Mahomes is better. And if anything, Mahomes might have just slipped a little bit, maybe a little bit. I'm still expecting God mode from Mahomes because he is Mahomes. But I don't know. I feel like it's very strange to say, but I feel better about Josh Allen in the matchup, which is sacrilegious again. But that's how I feel. I think he's played at a higher level than Mahomes this year. We'll see if Mahomes has an extra gear that he's been saving up for this moment. Okay, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Barrios. They cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with the Australian Open Women's Final. Aryna Sabalenka, to the surprise of very few, is one of the finalists at -300. More surprising, Madison Keys, who dispatches Iga Swiatek in a pretty epic final set super tiebreak. She is +250 to go all the way and win her first Grand Slam. What do you make of the matchup, Drew? Do you think that there is any meat on the bone at Sabalenka -300?
Yes. So I actually expected this to open larger. And I was going to make the case for Keys. But the way my Australian Open has gone, that probably means Sabalenka's clean through 2-0. But no, I mean, Lawson's, sort of the analysis of Keys Iga, which, it was such a surprise and such a shock. And when you look at the kind of match stats, to try to help explain things, like, I don't know who that player was that showed up to play Madison Keys, because it certainly wasn't the same Iga Swiatek that took the court throughout the rest of the Australian Open. The unforced errors were just monumental. A lot of them, again, weren't really a product, I didn't think, of what Madison Keys was doing out there. The first serve in particular, just completely abandoned Iga. She was a double fault machine, which is weird. And all that said, I think what's lost is that Keys was wildly mentally resilient. She loses the first set and came back out and played a much better set in the second to level it, and then was very competitive in the third, was the better player in the third, gets broken at the death, and finds a way to break back to force the third set tiebreak. It felt for most of the third set like, wow, this is going to be a bummer. Keys is the better player and she's not going to come through, but she does. And even in the 10-point tiebreak, she was well down. She's down 7-5 at one point, and then storms her way back to get the win. And she was cool, calm, and collected in all of the kind of major moments, which is what she's going to need to be to have a chance against Sabalenka. Kind of the main head-to-head, or at least the main kind of matchup that comes to mind when you think of, well, what do we expect here between Keys and Sabalenka, is their semifinal matchup from the U.S. Open back in 2023. This, of course, was a weird one where Madison Keys came out absolutely firing missiles. Sabalenka looked lost. Keys won the first set 6-love, and then Sabalenka scratched back a 7-6, 7-6 to win 2-1. Now, the third set I thought was basically a coin flip there. Overall in the match, you had said that Keys was marginally the better player, but Keys did exactly what she needed to do to be competitive in that one, which was save a lot of breakpoint opportunities. And I would say that, all of the things you can say that are favorable for Sabalenka about this court and this surface also apply to Madison Keys. This should be a match that's decided mostly by who can just kind of execute their game plan the most effectively. And while I agree that Sabalenka is that player and she should be the favorite, I want to make some case for this being at least a little bit more competitive match than -300. So my fair price for what it's worth is -285 for Sabalenka. So there's not a ton of meat on the bone here taking on anyone, because Keys I'm looking at right now is 258. So I'm -285 plus 285, and so I'm falling right in the middle of the money line. But over 2.5 sets right now is +156. I think that's a pretty fun angle to play this one, just expecting that there's going to be moments that are that are tough and competitive, and there are still some things that Sabalenka needs to prove in terms of going up against players who are, redlining the way the Keys is, in terms of just, hey, I'm the better player. I'm going to execute my game plan and I'm going to keep this simple. She wobbled at times versus Pegula in her US Open title last year. She was relatively lucky, I think, to come through against Rybakina in her first ever Australian Open title. And I could see a similar match playing out to that Australian Open final from not last year, but 2 years ago. And seeing Sabalenka take this thing 2-1. So I'm going to play over 2.5 sets at +156. And I'm going to play an exact or a correct score, of Sabalenka 2-1 at +278.
Okay. I think with Keys, I thought it was, to your point, remarkably impressive the way that she kept everything together, given that she does have a bit of a history for wilting in these big matches, and particularly in that tiebreak at the end to decide it. I have a theory that's completely unsubstantiated, but my theory is that in tennis, nerves most clearly manifest themselves in first serves, because there is just more mechanically going on in a service motion than there is in ground strokes, just like between your ball toss, between your weight transference, and just between the decision making as well. And also, it's the one moment where you have time to think most about hitting it. And that's where I think nerves take over more than when you're hitting ground strokes and rallying. I found that just muscle memory takes over more so than with your serve. And the fact that Keys was able to make 72% of her first serves in the third set, the fact that when she's down 8-7 in the tiebreak at the end, she serves an ace at 8-7 to bring it back to 8-all, and then she finds her serve again on the next point before winning it on Iga's serve. So I thought that was a huge sign for her, and the fact that she was able to stick to her game, the fact that, she does have recent-ish success against Sabalenka, where if you bagel Aryna Sabalenka and take her to a third set tiebreak, that qualifies as success against the best player in the world. So do you think that the path for Keys to winning this match? Does she have the upside in her own game to kind of play Sabalenka off the court in a way, or do you think that the more likely path is that, Sabalenka has one of her where the demons kind of get unshackled and the demons come out again, and it's like that French Open semi-final against Mukova a couple of years ago where she just completely lost the plot?
Well, the only kind of reference point touchstone we have, I think, is Sabalenka's loss to Coco Gauff at the U.S. Open 2 years ago, which, of course, was the match that immediately followed her defeating Keys. In that match, it felt like Coco Gauff really did kind of bring out the demons and kind of frustrate Sabalenka. And Sabalenka can get frustrated pretty easily. She is prone to double faulting. She is prone to kind of visibly showing frustration and losing a little bit of like her focus on the court when things are not going her way. And I don't know that Keys is necessarily going to be able to elicit that in a one-sided manner. Right, she's going to need a little help, but I think it's possible for sure. And I would expect that, her coolness and maturity is kind of unique at this point in the sport. She's entering, this is her, kind of, I think, 30th birthday year. And her peak rating was back in 2016. So we're a long time away from seeing her, kind of reach this level. This is Madison Keys we're talking about. And then, so, kind of expected that she was capable of doing this in a Grand Slam format, surely. But when you look at sort of the balance of what she's done so far this young season, it's pretty darn impressive. She's beating a lot of good players with a lot of different styles in back-to-back rounds, like beating an Ostapenko and then turning around and adjusting your games to get a Kasatkina in straight sets is impressive in Adelaide. Beating a Pegula in Adelaide, who we know had, brought pretty solid form into this tournament in 3 was impressive. And then, certainly the takeaway from the defeat of Rybakina was, well, Rybakina is not right. That we know a lot of things are going on with her. And that was a little bit dismissed. She loses the first set against Svitolina, but then comes back. That was like good mental, damage. She faces a match point and comes back against Iga. Really, really good mental kind of exercises for ultimately getting something done here. So, I don't know that I can talk myself into a moneyline bet on Keys unless I get a price that's in the plus 300 range. But I will remember this run from her and have incredible amount of, respect and admiration for what she's been able to do in this fortnight.
Indeed. Yeah, good for you, Madison. After kind of the demons of years past, seemingly exercised, at least for now. Hopefully she doesn't bottle it in the final, and hopefully we get a good match. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, good luck this weekend.